First of all, Mr. Chairman, what's your reaction to the Kremlin saying, kind of ridiculing the idea that candidate Donald Trump or President Trump was an asset or could be an asset for Russia? I mean, it's interesting to hear them kind of ridiculing this notion.
It is. This is such an otherworldly situation where you've got the Kremlin denying that the President of the United States was working as an agent for them.
And echoing the whole sort of fake news, argument as well. They say, it's bad journalism.
Oh, yes. And, well, we've heard Lavrov from time to time use what looks like the exact same talking points as Sarah Huckabee Sanders. But it's worth also remembering that the Kremlin is more than capable and has put out disinformation on this very issue time after time. The most interesting to me was when we learned from Michael Cohen recently that the Trump Tower Moscow deal, which initially the president had denied any business dealings, and then they admitted there was a deal, but it ended in January, that the effort to make that deal happen went all the way till June of 2016. And it was revealed that they had sought the Kremlin's assistance. The Kremlin had denied that. The Kremlin had said, we never followed up on that, we never had any contact. Now, the Kremlin was on the other end of that transaction, Dmitry Peskov, and we would learn from Michael Cohen that, in fact, no, they had responded. And so the Kremlin has helped Trump and his organization cover up contacts with them. So that tells us how much we can rely on the Kremlin talking points.
Also, when you see every time that the president has actually met with Vladimir Putin, it does just raise more questions. I mean, you would think for this president in particular, he would want other people in the room, other officials, given the allegations against him, given the suspicions at the very least, he would want somebody else there with, to be able to record for posterity what actually was discussed, but that's not been the case.
That's exactly right, and particularly if he was going to confront Putin on their intervention in our election, or he moved on to others, he would want others to be able to say, "Oh, I watched the president, take Putin to task," but of course he didn't want any of that, and it kind of beggars the imagination, why this desire for private, secret conversations with Putin.
Do you think the FBI was right to, the New York Times reporting that after the firing of Comey, they opened up. They started looking into whether the president could be compromised?
I can't confirm that report. I can't speak to that.
If that, in fact, is true, though, is that something you think would have been justified?
Well, I can certainly tell you that our primary concern from the beginning was a counterintelligence concern, initially about those around Donald Trump and then certainly about Donald Trump himself. And that continues to this day. And indeed, the more the president acts in the Russian interest, these revelations that he wanted to withdraw from NATO and kept bringing up withdrawing from NATO. I mean, that is an idea so much at odds with our national security interests on a very bipartisan basis. There's recognition of the tremendous value to our security that it's all the more inexplicable in the absence of some compromise.
You and the majority on your committee now have subpoena power. Do you intend to try to subpoena the interpreter or get the notes? I mean, it's my understanding, I believe there's been some reporting that the president actually took the notes that the interpreter had, so I don't know if any notes actually currently exist. But is that something, do you want to pursue this?
We do want to pursue this, and I've been in discussions with my counterparts on the Foreign Affairs Committee, Chairman Engel. We've been consulting with the lawyers also. What is the best case? What arguments might the White House make? It looks to me on the surface that they don't have much of an executive privilege case to make. That privilege really normally applies when the president is seeking advice from his counselors. And there's a policy interest in making sure that he has the free and unfettered opinion of those. That's not the case when he's speaking to a foreign leader, and he's speaking to that foreign leader in private. And so I don't think the privilege applies, but we want to make sure that we're on the strongest possible ground. If the president destroyed any record of that meeting, that's a separate issue and a separate problem. That gives us further potential jurisdiction to get answers.
So does that mean you could subpoena the interpreter, or you would?
Well, we certainly could subpoena the interpreter. We could subpoena the interpreter's notes. The question is, on what basis will they refuse? Because they will refuse. And what is our chance of success on that? And, I think we have to look at Is there a method for us to get that information voluntarily? Is there a way for us to assure the country that the president behind closed doors is not sacrificing the interests of the country? It's always our preference to get voluntary cooperation before we consider compulsion.
Chairman Schiff, I appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.